Vaidio has been generating a tremendous amount of momentum in the healthcare space, specifically with hospitals. Hospitals have lots of cameras. Hospitals have very specific needs that Vision AI can address. And so I'm bringing on Todd Larson this morning. He's a consultant at HonorHealth, and he's going to help me kind of sort through the intersection between Vision AI and healthcare. Todd, do you want to just give a little bit of your background and introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Really great to see all of you. My background briefly, retired from law enforcement, but I spent the majority of that career in the technology field doing conspiracy cases, wiretaps, surveillance, those types of investigations. So I've always been heavily in technology. Uh, Transitioned after 23 years in retirement, transitioned over into healthcare about 11 years ago, of which I ran workplace public safety for a large system in Arizona and designing out their systems, including cameras, access control, building our network operations center. So a lot of time in this field. And then I still do law enforcement training and consulting around the United States as well. So passion for this field, passion for what we're doing. I think that this is sort of the future of what we could do for not only safety, not only workplace violence, but I think down the road, massive amounts of savings and integration in overall workplace efficiency in the entire healthcare environment. And so excited to be here, thankful to talk about a little bit of our role. And then lastly, my current role with Honor Health is running our transformation center. So a lot of people like the word innovation, and we tend to go more with the word of transformation. We focus on things that transform the environment. So it could be technology, it could be workflow, it could be process, it could be a
Hmm.
combination thereof. And that's where I think AI vision comes into play. The combination of workflow and efficiency tied with innovation and technology, because the camera is there all the time in this sort of 365, 24/7 mode. So thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
Thankful to be here.
No, I love that transformation. And another thing I would just add to that before we kind of get started into the standard, the questions we discussed, um, there's like there's a shift in the technology landscape that is occurring. And everybody we hear about all these AI companies, and we hear about specifically NVIDIA. And NVIDIA is kind of driving this shift from a hardware perspective with these new chips, these GPU chips that are just able to process more um, data than anything we've seen prior to that. And so when you see a technology shift like that, then all the surrounding accoutrements shift too. So now all of a
Right.
sudden, because of this GPU shift, you can start looking at that camera data in a new way, which you described, this transformative way to start thinking about different use cases beyond just the security use cases that you might have implemented it for, right? Like, or to enhance the security use cases. So, Todd, let me just start you off with an easy one. I know you're working with hospitals every day. What are two or three issues hospital administrators and facility teams are kind of losing sleep over right now?
Yeah, I would say the most common ones that we have at our own healthcare organization and around the country that I work with. The one blessing I have with the Transformation Center, to your point, Matt, is we work with healthcare organizations across the entire ecosystem. So both internally and externally, I hear number one, the safety of the facility, the safety
Mm,
of the patient, and the safety of the staff member. Anybody in
mm,
healthcare is well aware that there's been a significant rise in workplace violence. There's been a significant rise in the workplace in, I would say, uncordial behavior. I don't
hmm.
know where this really started, but the fact that there is this verbal, bodily language, just sort of tenseness that is seen
Mm,
every day. Now combine that with literal violence. Take, for instance, really quickly, a nurse who views her job as caregiving or his job as caregiving. So when I spent my career in law enforcement and somebody gives me body signs or body signals or makes a comment like, hey, I'm not going to jail, I back off, I de-escalate, I call in help, I do all of these things. A
You're
caregiver's
trained.
mindset, right? A caregiver's mindset is, hey, don't stick me with that. And the nurse is like, it's okay, sweetie. And they come over because they're a caregiver and they get hit.
Mm,
So I think number one, you have workplace violence, public safety, those types of things, and I think that stresses out a lot of healthcare leaders because it's hurting the profession, it's hurting staff members. They're afraid to engage, and bad
yeah.
things can happen. Number two, the global mix of what's going on right now. There are massive changes, whether it's one big beautiful bill, whether it's payer mix, whether it's insurers. All of these things are stressing healthcare workers out, which is causing EBITDA margins, different, definability of where we were on a predictable scale was generally standardized, and you could have this
Mm,
EBITDA rate, and you could standardize it year over year, and you'd have but massive changes in payer mix, what's coming in, what's going out, percentages, CMS. All of these changes are stressing everybody else. And then I think lastly is tying, I think it's a stressor. I cannot go to a hospital meeting where AI is brought up and then they don't know what to do. And it's
yeah.
and there's this AI message. And so I think you combine those three things of we have all these issues, and then we have all these payer mix problems, and we have government intervention, and we have unstable environments, and metrics are changing and all that. And then people want to throw in AI right away, and healthcare
Hmm.
organizations, what AI ties to people, right? And so
Yeah.
when we look at process like supply chain, which is why I get with AI video vision, I think the big buck the next few years, the big bang is in your non-clinical areas, right? How can you get it
Hmm.
into operations? How can you get it into support services? How can you get into those areas where it is accepted and will be? The clinician doing the work, I think that's a different conversation. That's trust,
Hmm.
variability. It takes time. So, and I know Steve Unger joined us, and I know Steve has a lot of comments on this too, Steve, with One Big Beautiful Bill or some of the government stuff with your long career in healthcare.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah, so thanks, Todd. I will tell you that, as you know as best than anybody, that with a big, beautiful bill, Medicare and Medicaid reimbursements to the hospital are greatly reduced. I know some health systems are trying to find tens of millions of dollars, and it's a huge problem today. And quality of patient safety and patient care is going to really be impacted. So, to your point, Todd, so I think this is perfect what you're bringing up. And I think it's important using AI technologies is definitely going to enable her to help us work through those challenges and find cost ROI savings and more operation effectiveness.
Hey,
Yeah.
let's talk about that. Let's zero in on that a little bit because who humans, especially in hospitals, kind of operate sequentially, right? But there's a lot of interruptions. So, can we talk a little bit about why hospitals are starting to look kind of beyond traditional cameras and as access control mechanisms and more towards um, operational effectiveness and using Vision AI to kind of keep workflows intact. I'm thinking about like nurses or particular workflow processes that are getting kind of interrupted and then not completed. Do you have any? I
Yeah.
know we talked about that earlier, Todd. Do you have any kind of insight on that, like how we shift from security uses to operational uses?
Yeah, I think, when you think of AI vision, um, that security is quote unquote, the foot in the door, the no-brainer, the easy answer. We all know that AI vision can help with facial recognition and weapons detection and those
Hmm.
types of things. And that is an absolute and it's a need. But in hospital, to your point, when we think about looking beyond traditional use and AI, hospitals live off of process. Everything is a process, right? You have a patient evaluation, you have a chart review, you review the symptoms, you go through checklists. Like it's such a process-driven organization. And you look over to factories and you look to services industry, and they've been using this AI vision and moving it forward at a much faster pace because they understand the value of what the human mind can do versus what a camera can do. So simply put, a human being is based on human performance. And so you have to see things, you have to recognize things, and there's always a gap in there. And that gap is your reaction. And that reaction takes thought, it takes experience. Now, you can shorten the reaction gap by having more experience, more knowledge, more tenure, right? A very seasoned clinician might see something and immediately know what that is, immediately react, and immediately deal with it. Versus somebody who's newer, it might take them time and they have a gap and they got to understand and they got to learn. They might have to call in a consult. But now think about what a camera can do. I like to use the word room, or two words, room environment. You think about the entire room environment, that sets your patient care, that room environment along with the clinician. So if we can use the clinician to do what exactly they're trained to do, be a great clinician, administer care, hold your hand, seek symptoms. What's your pain compliance? What's your pain measurement? How are we reassessing it? How am I evaluating your care? Doing the hands-on clinical work. The camera can do everything else in the room sequentially without interruptions. So a camera can look at the room environment and see, oh, that IV drip is low. Oh, that line is bent and I need to alert someone. Oh, by the way, the food tray is sitting there and they haven't touched their food and their medication is tied to their food. And I need to alert the staff member that as soon as the tray was dropped off, the patient fell asleep and they didn't eat their food, which is going to delay their medicine, which is going to delay their time. Oh, and by the way, their right leg is drifting off of the bed, and now we have a fall risk. Oh, and by the way, if I look over in the corner, I see, something that's there that shouldn't be there. And we can go on down the line. Everything I just explained, a human being would have to see and interpret every one of those things. They'd have to physically be in the space. And they'd have to interpret it all simultaneously while doing everything they're doing. And that's not humanly possible. It's not within the realm of human performance. But what is within the realm of human performance is taking feeds from a 24/7, 365 system that's scanning this the entire time and giving valuable alerts. So now I'm getting an alert that, hey, I have a bent or twisted line. Hey, I have this. And those alerts are tasks that I can now handle as a clinician, but I'm getting them timely. I'm getting them in a manner that makes it better for our patients and better for safety, for quality, and for better care. And it's making our staff far more efficient. And if all of those little things can be handled by a couple of alerts, now think about the joy of medicine. The nurse can hold somebody's hand, spend time with them, and be with the patient. So Steve, I don't know if you have any comments on that. I mean, we've had a ton of conversation about room environment. I think you had a really quick story about, recognizing smoke or some unknown alert, something that just happened.
Yeah, well, having the Vision AI for smoke, just looking at the facilities, right? You'll be able to. There was actually a hospital up in the Northeast that had a major flood, and and it cost the hospital a fortune. So this was something that we can actually with Vision AI could be able to detect those situations. But Todd, what you're talking about with all the different analytics that you can do with Vision AI for a hospital, it's endless. I mean, I know you touched on a few things, but just looking at even the behavioral side, what happens in the hospital, loitering,
Right.
tailgating, going into unauthorized areas. I mean, those are things that this technology really does a great job in. Looking at unusual movements in the patient rooms. I know some of it's HIPAA compliant and everything, but there's just all that activity. And then you and I talked about putting a camera down the hallway so you can to see when hospital room turns, right? When the placards, when it's clean or it's occupied. I mean, just more efficiencies to make turnover better and more revenue for the hospital and just keeping everything moving at the right operation level.
Yeah,
Steve,
Matt,
oh,
Matt, can I build on that really quick? I just
yeah.
say we had an exact example of what Steve is bringing up, where just by having vision, and this wasn't an AI platform, this is just the camera. Just by having camera vision and putting the supervisor in our network operations center, there was one service line in one area that we reduced wait time from an average of 12 to 14 people in queue on transport to zero. And that's without even adding the AI layer. So now if we add the AI layer to Steve saying, now we know exactly when, say, janitorial or EVS, whatever your organization refers to it as, EVS goes into the room and comes out. We now know exactly how long it takes to clean a patient room. We know how long it takes to turn over a room. And a supervisor sitting in a command type center can watch all of that live and make adjustments. And really, I mean, the efficiencies that can be created are endless. I mean, that's just one quick scenario.
Yeah, can we talk a little bit about just help people understand how a hospital makes money, right? So, what are the key bottlenecks that Vision AI can help with to increase patient satisfaction, which is kind of the stated goal of every hospital, right? We don't in healthcare, we don't really talk about making money, right? We talk about
Right.
cost avoidance, we talk about patient satisfaction, we talk about saving lives, right? So it's kind of a little bit kind of gross to talk about making revenue, but like talk a little bit about the key things that a hospital thinks about when it's thinking about being profitable, but also by proxy increasing patient satisfaction. What are some areas Vision AI can help with those things so we get to the
Sure.
actual benefit of implementing this?
Well, you hit a point that for years I don't think was that much of a concern. And the reason I say that is, yes, you're right. The number one concern is the patient. Number one concern is the care. So that always comes first. And of course, if you are the patient in that scenario, it's like buying a car, right? If you know in general life, oh, I can afford a Toyota Camry, or I could afford a Lexus, or I could afford a Maserati, whatever your economic scale is that you can afford. Not in healthcare. If you come
Mm,
in as a patient, we're going to run every single test to make sure that we discover what we discover. We're going to run every diagnostic that we need to run. Every patient is a Cadillac, if that makes sense.
mm,
So
yes.
it's not plug and play. Every patient is that same level. Traditionally, what has happened is hospitals have a margin. That margin is short. I'll tell you, 2-3% is a common margin in healthcare, probably the most common. Less than 5, you start getting 4 or 5%, and you're in gold standard. And how
Mm,
is that maintained? It generally maintained through CMS, through payer mix, through insurers, through government reimbursements. And those are standardized with standardized improvements and incremental every year. And I'm telling you, that has changed. So traditionally, you'd have these standardized government rates, a standardized growth tied with growth of your area. Your area is growing. I'm fortunate to be in the Phoenix Valley area, which is for 30 years has been growing. And and there's growth. So you can forecast growth, you can forecast population increase, you can forecast your government type payer mixes and your insurers and your private sector and all these payer mixes. And you could forecast this on a very sort of plateaued state, 2
mhm,
3%. Honestly, that's what's been going on forever. What's happening now is we're in a very much a growing area in Phoenix. We cannot grow our way out of this because of the way payer mixes have changed, because the way government has changed reimbursements, because the way all this has happened. We cannot grow our way out. So to your point, Matt, the value in this is efficiency and process because
mhm.
healthcare is inefficient, highly bureaucratic, and not been focused truly on process and efficiency. So we have to look at the patient, give the best possible care, but now let's focus on doing it the most effective way to be efficient with our staff. So I'll give you an AI vision example. Um, just something as simple as maintenance. We look at our maintenance bill that comes in, and this was a conversation I had with our head of facilities. The bill would come
Mhm.
in every month for our landscaping costs. So roughly 11 hospitals, 200 and some other locations. And you get these bills for your landscaping, your tree maintenance. You get a storm that comes by and trees go down and all this happens. And he comes to me and he says, at the end of one month, my bill is, let's just use a made up number. My bill is 100 hours and it cost me
Mhm.
X. And the next month it's 130. And the next month it's 117. And the next month it's 142. And I really don't know how to totally measure this. And you think of AI vision, how easy would it be with license plate reader and truck recognition with their logo and decal. We know when they come on the property. We know
Verify
how
the
long they're
bill.
there and when they leave. And it auto generates an autonomous report at the end of the month that goes out, and it costs nobody any work, nobody any review. What if we
Right.
start
They've already
doing that
got too many things
across
to
the board?
do. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Hey,
Todd,
Steve, let me
I got
actually,
a
Steve, let
real
me
quick.
let me jump in here. I want to set you up here. So another thing that's come up in our conversations is the issue of equipment availability, like wheelchairs, beds, and the impact of that on patient experience. So how can Vision AI help with those issues? And it relates to Todd's point about efficiency, right?
Yeah, well, I just want to bring up one thing really quick that what Todd was just talking about. What's the most expensive real estate in a hospital today? It's the
Patient care
OR.
areas.
It's
Yeah.
the OR,
OR
right?
patient care areas. Yes.
Yeah, right, Todd. So using Vision AI with LPR license plate reader, wouldn't it be great that we can actually, when the surgeon comes into the in surgery, the parking garage,
Yes.
alert goes right off. Everybody gets ready, gets the room prepared, gets the patient prepared, get everything staged, ready to go. Make it more efficient because again, you're looking at turns, OR turns. Make sure the patient gets through recovery. Next patient. It just makes a more efficient system by being able to do that. So.
That's a great point. That's a great point about the that initial action, the surgeon pulling into the parking lot can trigger an alert so that now everyone knows we're ready to rock, right? So when that surgeon who's his or her time is super valuable, we don't waste it at all. Can you, Steve, comment a little bit about the issue of equipment availability, like wheelchairs, beds, and how that impacts patient experience?
Yeah, what's really incredible is that just looking at the cost factor, a lot of these health systems don't even know the amount of equipment they actually own because they're always scrambling for where's the wheelchair, patient's ready to get released, and there's a long waiting period. It's just personally, I've been through it through my family members. I mean,
Mm,
IV pumps. Sometimes there's IV pump shortages. You got to find them. Some patients have 4 or 5 IV pumps sitting in the room, or some of the IV pumps are actually stashed away because the nurses hide them, right, Todd,
Right.
to make sure they can have always access to them. So what that
mm.
creates is an asset tracking concern, and it also raises costs for the hospital. So what does the hospital do? They go out and do more equipment rentals to buy more wheelchairs, more IV pumps. They didn't need all that. They just need a tracking system to be able to know where those assets at all time, real time, and be able to leverage those assets more efficiently.
Yeah. Todd,
Yeah.
let,
And
let me
Matt,
let me
just
let me
go ahead,
set you up
Matt.
here. So we talked about equipment going missing. What about a patient going missing or becoming disoriented? What does that look like with Vision AI? How can Vision AI help with? I know that's a common problem. Patient falls is a common problem. How do you see Vision AI impacting those use cases?
So I see that as critical. So you think about the patient, very easy to recognize a gown. I mean, that's machine learning that can be done quickly. That's done by many companies out there that are in this space. So patient wandering, patient loitering, patient in area they shouldn't be in, patient
Mm,
in certain positions, like you said, fall risk, algorithms. So patient movement is critical, but so is everything else with it. Staff movement. A lot of hospitals, to your point, not just patients, a lot of hospitals struggle on not even knowing who's in their facility and where they are. So you
mm,
could easily have a pre-register kiosk. You come in, boom, your ID phase, your visitor, now you're in the hospital, and now you're sitting there and you know who's in your hospital, who they are, where they're
mm.
moving, where they're going. Now tie that along with the equipment that goes with it. Now tie that along with the cost. So I had a leader that wanted to go more with RTLS and location tracking, all that. And you buy a whole nother system and it's several $1 million. When
Yeah.
like we already have cameras we already have this availability. Let's just put AI on that. Let's
You know,
just layer it. So,
you brought
so
up a
let's
good
start
point.
stacking our costs, if that makes sense. Bang, back to efficiency. Why have two separate cost items that could do the same thing?
Let's talk about that a little bit. What do you mean by stacking costs, Todd?
I think that we forget sometimes that, well, let me go back to stacking costs where I think is critically important is core platforms. You know, what is your organization's core platforms? So if you're a Microsoft shop, or if you're a Cisco shop, or if you're, obviously in healthcare, we have Epic and we have Cerner and different EMRs. And then
Mm,
you look at things like ServiceNow or Workday, or I'm just naming major platforms. So take your major platforms, take your core platforms and leverage them for all that you can leverage them for, instead of buying all of these other supplemental softwares and supplemental platforms. Leverage your platforms. So what I want to go back to the original conversation that you said, Matt, about leveraging is security is often the way in the door for AI
mm,
vision, right?
hmm.
License plate readers, facial recognition, weapons detection, wandering, loss, things like that.
It's why they
Geofencing.
built this camera infrastructure
Right.
originally.
But why are
Exactly.
we not layering everything else that we want to do, that
Right.
that everybody is coming to us to spend money on? Why are we not layering it right with the AI vision? Meaning
Yes.
asset tracking, meaning throughput, as Steve already brought up, whether that's surgical throughput. And could that be the LPR coming in when the surgeon drives in? Or could that be tracking of vendors that I brought up earlier with the other vendor? Could that be the tracking of your own personnel? Could that be your bathroom cleaning? How many times the people have head count in and out? And what people are not getting in my world in healthcare, what they're not getting is this camera is 24/7 doing all of this at one time. Why
Yeah.
not just layer all of these other requests that come into us? A vast majority of them could be layered right through AI vision. Because,
Yeah.
and then you don't need all these other softwares. So tech debt, things like that.
Yeah. I think this is the fundamental value proposition of Vaidio, right? Unlocking the power of your camera infrastructure. And you just said it so perfectly, Todd. Like there are new ways that we can get a better ROI from our existing security investment. And there are all these other buckets, whether it's PPE compliance and safety, or it's operational effectiveness, like the wheelchair example, or the clinician optimization, and ultimately patient satisfaction.
Right.
We got a couple more minutes here. I wanted to talk a little bit about intrusions and unauthorized access because Todd, you hit on that a little bit in your talk track. And hospitals are really kind of open environments by design. I haven't been in one in a while, and I'm happy to say that. But it is always kind of interesting to me that you could just kind of wander around and can I open this door? Can I go in here? It's like it's not a very tightly secure place. Where do you see the biggest risks when it comes to unauthorized entry or intrusion?
Yeah, I think we have a huge risk when we think about pharmaceuticals. We think about drug diversion. We think
Mm,
about that area. We have a huge risk in our data, IT, closets, service centers, and then obviously funneling locations down to one. And so all of what you brought up is critically important. We need to do target hardening. Here's the end explanation of what you're saying. How do you do target hardening in an open environment? And it's a
mm,
simple answer, technology, right?
right.
How do you go to the Bellagio in Las Vegas and they put through hundreds of thousands of people, and there is no physical intrusion into you? Yet their AI cameras, their vision, they can read the serial number on the dollar bill that you're putting down on the table, right? They can track falls, they can track slips, they can track entry, they can do all these things. Why do
Yeah.
they do that? They do that because of technology. So I think in healthcare, it sounds weird, but I think in healthcare, we need to look to places like, Las Vegas. We need to look to
Right.
massive sporting venues. I went to the World Series in Arizona a couple of years ago here,
Mm,
and My wife and I got there super early with our daughters, thinking we're going to have these long lines and all this. No, we went through, you know, highest level of technology, highest level of security through a technological environment. And I mean, we were in the stadium within like 7, 8 minutes. I couldn't believe it for a World Series
Yeah.
game. Why? They were running a national security event. They're running the highest levels of this type of technology we're talking about. So my
Yeah.
point
It's
is,
so interesting that you
yeah,
say that, like stadiums, casinos, hospitals, they all have very similar attributes, right? It's a mixed crowd. It's not just employees. There's also patients, right? Or fans. And the security needs are pretty complicated, right? And these different buildings have similar attributes, right?
right. And I can end with, it's incredibly complicated. And so, how
Yeah.
do we be open environment while being target hardened? And I believe the only way to have an open environment and be target hardened is through technology. It was
Hmm.
very easy for me in my law enforcement days to run security at a courthouse. Why? You lock everything down to one entrance. That's the only way in. You have armed personnel at the door. You have full-blown
Not gonna
metal
work for
detectors.
these
That
not
will
going to
not
work for
work in
these types
healthcare.
of environments, right?
Right.
No.
That won't
That
work.
thing. Hey,
Hey,
Steve, I want to
Todd.
set you up here. Sorry. I know you guys just want to riff, but I got to keep you on. I got to keep you focused. Um, Steve, talk to me a little bit about this drug um, issue and unauthorized access. And I know I've heard you talk about this quite a bit. Can you kind of give the audience a little bit of insight on how intrusion detection and as an AI analytic can help with this pharmaceutical theft issue? Sorry, I know I didn't say that perfectly. Can
No,
you
that
give
was
us a little bit
perfect.
on that?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I'm so happy you brought this up. And for the partners on the call today, this is a critical area. I've been working with partners over almost 28 years, and this is an incredible opportunity for you guys. So let me just kind of drill into it. Drug diversion is up terrible, over 40% over last year. The DEA is has a lot of cases. They can't get to a lot of these cases right now. So a lot of the opioids and the controlled substance drugs today are having issues where it's going diversion and going onto the street. And a lot of large hospitals, you read them in the Becker hospitals. You hear about, Cleveland Clinic, Mayo, everybody, UT Southwestern in Dallas, where I live. They're getting, millions of dollars of citations. So here, your hospital is not only losing the cost of the medication that's going out the door, or going into a locker room or into a women's bathroom or men's bathroom, but you're also losing it on the fines and penalties that they're paying, plus the hospital's reputation. So it's a really serious issue. Vision AI is an incredible access control. It's something we could go do today. Just to give you some quick numbers, if you look at a 100-bed hospital, a 300-bed hospital, and a 500-bed hospital, you will see that if you put it with these Pyxis systems, which is their way to dispense the medications, we have systems that are asking for Vision AI to track the movement and activity that's in the pharmacy. That alone could be a wonderful land and expand opportunity for your customers to take a look at Vision AI. Because what are they doing today? Fingerprint reader is not working. Badge access is not working. They find ways to use a card system to get through it, and then there's misplacement of the medications and how they're being disposed or if they've been expired. These are issues that have to be dealt with, and I think Vision AI can really bring the right solution to the pharmacy at the hospital.
I was talking with you guys. Somebody brought up, I think it was Todd brought up an example where they were trying to track the access to an area which had these kind of pharmaceuticals, and what they found was that it was the same person over and over again, and the issue was that they're somebody's the fingerprint scanner stopped working, and so they just put one person's fingerprint on the back of everyone's badge. And um, who was telling me that example? Was
Yeah.
it Todd? Was it
So,
you?
yeah, Matt. So, really good point is that traditional systems generally require something that you know and something that you possess. right? And then people think from a biometric standpoint, something you know, something you possess. So
Mm,
something you know is often a password. Something you possess could be a badge. Something you possess could be a fingerprint. But again, in the incident I'm talking about, it was well known, was rolling a fingerprint, taping that on the back of the badge. So now you have a badge, pass, fingerprint back, done. That is a workaround of biometrics. Whereas
yeah.
if you walked in and you had a camera and you have that's probably already there and you have a badge on and the badge
Mm,
is you and the camera knows you and your facial recognition knows you and your facial recognition knows the badge, it now knows all the two factor. And really quick on this point with I want to address a couple questions in the chat that are specifically on this topic we're talking about. Number one,
okay.
can we use patient recognition to prevent access control and door opening? The answer is yes. And we have tied that into some of our systems at our hospital where you can tie the camera AI vision to your access control. That can be done. So the answer for that is yes. Another thing is how do you track assets within the hospital from this whole aerial denial or space denial, all that, or geofencing? And that can be done through object identification, which is machine learning that can easily be done, or there could be QR codes that could be placed on your items. There's many ways to do that. So it's very easy to track with AI cameras. And then lastly is how do you have ROI? And I think
Mm,
ROI is exactly what we're talking about. Let me give you a really quick example. If the AI video vision can do your RTLS system or your tracking and you end a $5 million contract, that is tangible CFO, look at it, sign off ROI. So I
mm,
think that's one example. Another example could be personnel. So I want to give a super fast example. Somebody asked in the chat on ROI and rooms. Can you put cameras in rooms? Yes, you can. There's other rules and other things, and we could talk about that another time. But the answer is yes. We have a system on a virtual nursing that's running right now. And back to Steve's point earlier on sitters, aerial denial, safety. Instead of having a sitter in 10 different rooms, a virtual sitter can watch all 10 rooms at the same time with one or two staff members right in the hallway ready to respond. And now we just took what used to be 10 sitters
mm.
and only need 3, and we just put 7 sitters back on the floor that could go work, do other things. Now, number 3, maybe your organization needs cost savings and you start eliminating some of those positions. Again, that is tangible ROI. These are just a couple of answers to those points.
I have another one. I
Aerial
have another
denial.
one.
Go ahead, Matt.
Steve, let me set you up here. So one is cost avoidance. So I know that there are real cost liabilities around patient falls. How can Vision AI help hospitals avoid lawsuits?
Well, it's funny you bring that up, man, because with Vaidio, we actually have a way to do a ROI calculator, right? That we can actually see how much that's going to, you set me up probably, how you could actually track, what that's going to cost a hospital, God forbid a patient falls or injures himself or whatever, because what happens there? Now they're back in the hospital room and the more extended stay. So it really makes a huge impact. And so it's really important to be able to track patient bed falls and also in the hallways as well. So that's critical. And I think where Vision AI can really be a huge help. And we can give you some numbers, the partners, to see what
We're going
kind
to
of
show them.
show them some examples
Yeah.
what this could cost them.
Yeah, Gail's going to walk us through a couple things. Gail, maybe you can break in here. I'm not looking at the chat. Are there any other questions in the chat that we can tee our guests up
Yes.
here with, please?
Sorry, so the way that I shared my screen, I actually wasn't able to view the chat, so let me do that right now. Take a look. Thank you, Todd, for answering some of those questions already.
Yes, Todd, good call.
I can see a couple of them if you want me to hit them.
Yeah, go ahead, hit them.
Yes,
Number
please.
one,
Read them out loud first.
yeah, number one, another one I see is how do you manage bandwidth? I'm going to be honest with you. We hardwire all of our cameras, whatever product we're using, because bandwidth is obviously a problem. So number one, we stay away from Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi environment is complicated and the bandwidth is tough. So we go hardwired on pretty much everything. As far as hospitals already having the investment made in the cameras, it's the investment in the solution. So I would say yes, and that's been our experience. We as a system invested heavily in a camera system and a video management system uh, several years ago. So the nice thing about AI vision, whatever company you're using, is it's a layering platform. So back to what I brought up earlier, Matt, right? Core platform.
Yes.
You already have cameras, you already have system. Now you're just layering. So you
That's a sunk
generally,
cost, right?
yeah,
Like,
right,
I mean, that
right.
capability can pay for itself by unlocking efficiency, unlocking measurable savings beyond just security, right?
Yes, exactly. So, and then somebody asked about existing deployments in US hospitals and references. I would refer you over to the International Association of Hospital Security, IASIS. They have great data, great information on this. There's tons of white papers and documents on that. So I would refer you over to that. And then there's one year that talks about hospital security officers are often undertrained and underprepared. How does the system compensate or account for fatigue and decision making?
Mm.
So, how does it, what happens if the system flags a potential threat, but they turn out to be
Who
distressed?
asked that question? Sorry to interrupt you, but that's a very
Yeah,
sophisticated question.
it is. And it was John who asked it. So let me
Good
break it
job,
down
John.
really, really quick. Number one, they are undertrained, I believe, and they are underpaid, yes. But that, I think, is why the cameras are much better because they can assist through that. The camera is non-bias. The camera is what I would call real sight, real vision. And so what happens when the system flags a visitor as a potential threat, but they turn out to be a distressed family member? My answer is great. That is
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
That is great.
that is
Because
a
either way,
tragedy avoided, right? Like,
it's an alert. So how do you
yeah.
train staff to handle these situations without escalating unnecessarily?
Yeah.
Now,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead, Steve. Go ahead, Steve. Jump
No,
in.
we didn't talk about the biggest elephant in the room is about workplace violence in hospitals, right? So that's a number one issue, right? And it's up 33%. I'm a numbers person. So I know the hospital that you're affiliated with, Todd, has been talking about doing body cams, for example, for nurses to wear body cams, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, think about that. It's just. But anyways, the nurses union up in the Northeast is making a requirement that they have to have security for the staff, for the
Mm.
clinicians, because they feel threatened. So it's really a problem, and that's why I think Vision AI really fills that gap.
Todd, what did you have a thought there that you were trying to complete on this question, or did we
Uh,
hit it?
I love what I think we did. The last thing is there's one more. I think I hit every question in the chat trying to
Okay.
buzz quickly for you, but one does say, can the system detect theft? And the answer would be, what is your use case? So can it
Hmm.
detect theft on a wheelchair, which wheelchairs are a major theft from most hospitals? That answer is yes. You can recognize the wheelchair, you can QR code the wheelchair, they break the geofence, you get an alert, security could respond out, call law enforcement, whatever way you want to do it. But so the answer is yes, it can detect theft. And again, it's back to your use cases. And I think those use cases are endless. And then the last question that just came up, did hospitals ask for face blurring in patient rooms? They commonly do. Most of the systems I work with do. As a matter of fact, even in our use of AI vision, the faces are not they're for lack of a term, I'll use your term blurred. The faces are altered faces, non-identifiable faces. So that's a really good question. All these are settings in almost any AI vision platform you can go to. Sorry, go ahead, Matt. I just want to make sure I got
No,
those stats
you're
out.
doing such a great job. You're doing my job for me, Todd. I love it. These are great insights. One thing, and we're kind of out of time. I do want to do a quick run. Oh, we've got another speaker. Vanika is going to talk a little bit about our new AI assistant in the support. So we probably do need to wrap it up. We didn't really get to cross camera tracking, which is a kind of a unique feature of Vaidio. Todd, maybe can you just give me like a minute or two on, or Steve, I don't know if this is something you're passionate about, but the idea that you can track something that's been identified across multiple cameras, uh, you know, um, feels like an important feature. Can you kind of help the audience understand why that's important?
Sure, I'm gonna let Steve answer that. I'm just gonna add
Okay.
one thing. The
Yeah.
cross-camera tracking, we're looking at cross-camera tracking not only within an organization, but with public safety partners. So back to that surgery example, we could cross-camera track with, say, the trauma surgeon and the ambulance, cross-camera track license plate readers of how far away are they. So I just wanted to say cross-camera tracking can go beyond your facility. So,
Mm.
Steve, I'll let you take that question and end it on cross-camera tracking.
Just real quick on the cross camera tracking. For an analytic, I would say that was probably in the top two, along with facial recognition. Vaidio system actually if you set up all your cameras with cross camera tracking, which I highly recommend, you can actually be able to look for anybody with whatever they're wearing, color, hat, backpack, cane, wheelchair, walker, whatever, what you're trying to find. You just put it in the system in about 2 to 2.5 seconds. It'll spot that individual or a photo, whatever. Next thing, you can show where they were, and then you can see a schematic GPS of the hospital, and it can show the track of where they were and where they could be located at that moment. So it's a very effective tool for search and find patients that are whether dementia patients or all types of, different type of security risks. These are cross-camera tracking is a need for a health system.
Awesome. Todd, Steve, thank you so much for your time this morning. That was a fantastic discussion.